Okay, so why the sea causes the mountain to turn to blood has to do with what Babylon did. Babylon took a lot of captives. They stole women, just like the Greeks in their mythology stole the Ethiopian women, Egyptian women, what have you. Okay, and obviously they raped them and they forced them into marriages and so on and so forth, and forced them into their cultures and forced them to give birth. And you see, periods have blood, females' periods, and the blood that was shed, and especially the blood that was shed by by the righteous trying to do God's work, refusing to assimilate. So their family members that they did assimilate, right? Look at white people and the Ethiopians, excuse me, not Ethiopians, Jewish people, and all the people of the world, basically. But certainly these groups, which are the main focus of Revelation, we see that they are often mixed in a very obvious way with Ethiopian and so on and so forth. And that's what it's referring to, right? These people that have taken on the name Jews are actually not the heroes of the story. They are the people who wrote this story. And you know how that goes, like Napoleon, who looks like a Jew for whatever reason. No offense to Jews, it says history was written by the winners. Okay, so of course they're supposed to scramble and obey God. There, it says right there in Matthew 21:43. Right, the kingdom of heaven is taken away from these people. It did not bear fruit. Right, there is not a single Jewish holiday that's after a righteous Jew. There's nothing like this. Right, it's just a character in the story, Christmas, and it's a pagan holiday. Right, so they didn't do a good job of being righteous as a people, as individuals. So it was just like I said in Matthew 21:43. They have no claim using a story in which they are not the heroes of the story over time, at least. They have no claim to being in charge or having salvation come through them. Salvation has come through the righteous. It comes through me. Okay, so remember they're changing my voice. For the third trumpet, it says a great star blazing like a torch all ablaze falls onto the waters, right? And again, Revelation likes to say sometimes all of the water, sometimes a third of the waters and springs, and so on and so forth. That refers to the kind of waters of people we see in Revelation 17, right? A sea of people, nations, multitudes, languages, cultures, ways, right? What they value, right? Their life essence, if you will, right? The water of life of God versus the water of a wicked life, the polluted and muddy waters of the devil. So this connects to a lot of places in the Bible, but especially Amos 5. Again, Amos 5, where it says that your despicable kind of cowardly cities that march out 1,000 strong will only have 100 left, and your towns that march out 100 strong will only have 10 left. This refers to their masculinity being reduced. This refers to their life essence, right? Those who pretend to be masculine, like police and social clubs and English royals and all these rich people in their gyms, right? You'll see that they're kind of fairy sissies who are sabotaging the races, the indigenous people that they kind of colonized. They're breeding kind of crypto gays and whites and their kind of social origin. You'll see right through that. And they might have some churches or something that are in a remote place that are more convincing than others, but you should see through that. So, not only are they sissy, but you can easily come to that conclusion, right? Their wives are very let down by their sexual performance and vice versa and so on and so forth. So they become a kind of more of a fairy theater art world and technology world than ever. You look at Apollo statues, a very feeble, kind of uncoordinated, sort of Ichabod Crane kind of guy. That refers to his spirit and his soul first and foremost. That refusal to man up and live in reality, right? Virtue means man. Okay, so it says that these people are neglecting the poor in Amos 5. Okay, they turn justice and righteousness into bitterness and cast it to the ground, and that there's no excuse for it. And that's why wormwood, right? The name of the star means bitterness. Okay, it's being cast into the water. The people are returning to the dust, right? And the snake is said to lick the dust, and their gold and silver in Zechariah is said to turn to dust, right? So they're being reduced, right? It's a transformation. Okay, we see in Revelation, I believe it's 18:23, it says, by Babylon's spell, all the nations are led astray. So all the people in the world are being led to kind of pitifulness, and the righteous are being taken away to be spared from evil, like we see in Isaiah 57. But it says, you come here, you who have accepted the magic spell, you who are the children of sorceresses, right? The daughters and sons, the children of, and the offspring of Adulterers and sorcerers who refuse to live in reality, want to play the token minority in Western theater art game, corporate gangs, right? You've chosen all these groups, right? The churches, mosques, synagogues. You refuse to accept moral precision. You're playing their fairy game, and it makes you a fairy, right? Just like running every day will make you kind of a better runner, okay? Being moral every day will make you more moral. Being a fairy who refuses to live in reality, who tries to benefit from the Contras game, for example, try to say, well, you know, at least you're not in the ghetto being a thug and you're in some gated community, going to a nice church, right? That just ruins you like at lightning speed. That's why in Amos 5 it says that God destroys their stronghold like a flash of lightning. And in Proverbs it says, you know, that the rich think their wealth is a fortified city, that it is a great stronghold for them, but it's not. Right, one who's poor and discerning, sees how deluded they are. One who is poor and discerning sees how the rich are deluded. They've chosen down. They've chosen to hoard their wealth. They've chosen, you know, their corporate partnerships and their networks and their stupid excuse for serving God when they do empty charity work. Okay, they've chosen that they're kind of pitiful, cowardly paths. And it says in Revelation, outside the gates are cowards, right? God hates, utterly despises cowards. They're perverse in hearts. They're letting their cowardice kind of convince them to do all kinds of sissy activities instead of manning up. Okay, so when it comes to the fourth trumpet, it says the sun is struck. A third of it is struck, right? A third of the moon, a third of the stars. This refers to, again, reducing righteousness. In Malachi4:2, it's called the sun in righteousness. In Psalm 19, the bridegroom, the champion, the top martial arts ever possible in me is compared to the sun. What they're referring to is the people who stay behind. They're not going to have somebody who's righteous. They're going to have somebody who's so reduced, okay, that they're not righteous, right? The moon is going to be struck. Okay, so their understanding, their ability to wrap their mind around what righteousness and justice is because of a point of reference, which is what the sun is, right? It communicates the glory of God, is reduced, okay? And they're not done yet, okay? This is just the fourth trumpet, right? When you look at everything that's occurred here, okay, it all adds up to they're just pitiful scum with some semblance of the past to remind them of their failure and their offspring and their abomination offspring. We said in Revelation 17, their offspring are abominations. Revelation 18 or so says the voice of a bride and bridegroom, the actions of a bride and bridegroom of God's Son and his marriage to the Jerusalem in the spiritual realm will never be there, right? You'll never go to heaven. Your offspring will never go to heaven. You'll be thrown into the lake of fire, you know, desolation and chaos and pitiful lives, and using stupid psychology and technology to try to make yourselves feel better, and meditation, things that aren't really the Spirit of God, and then you go off to eternal punishment where the worm, the snake, is never done chewing on your soul, where the fire is never quenched, okay, and the smoke from their torment rises forever and ever, okay. There's a lot of figurative speaking here. So the sun isn't literally struck, right? One of the biggest misconceptions out there is that these things are literally struck. Okay, when I was really little, I was thinking that might happen when I was real little. But when you get older and you start thinking about it, you say, this is probably not going to happen. And you do your research. If you do your research, you see that what is actually happening is figurative. And it's what you know already. Okay, you know, a lot of times white racists and corporations try to confuse you. They try to get you to think in terms of who's got more money, who gets a nice woman. Okay, excuse me, the attractive female, right? But she's just a fair weather gold digging slut. And money is just, you know, printed nonsense that buys you technological garbage, right? You're supposed to live for God, and that's far more fulfilling. You know, when I started being persecuted for righteousness' sake, just a moment being persecuted for righteousness' sake was more fulfilling than like the rest of my life put together. You know, all the females I dated living in Saratoga in a mansion, a swimming pool, you name it. My parents, doctors, and so on and so forth. None of that compares, okay? I know firsthand very well, I'm part black, part white. I know the Western culture, white culture really fails, right? Where it's in a specific African culture, okay, that is true fulfillment. And it's the Royal African Falcon martial art culture. You know, I've tried Eastern martial arts. I've went to their churches. I've dabbled in a lot of different cultures. You know, hippies, hanging out with them, and so on and so forth. You know, gangsters, right? You know, corporations. All that stuff's garbage. You know, all that is really fulfilling is the Royal African Falcon martial art order. Everything else is literally just child's play compared to that.